For a global business update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. A cool day really on Wall Street, and that really carried through to the Asia Pacific markets. The only one that really advanced was Japan, as usual, which is continuing to attract investment. The Nikkei up 0.1%. Hang Seng leading the losers in the area, down about 1.36%. Now, China's electrical vehicle market is not quite moving as fast as some of the manufacturers would actually like, and it's got a chunk of investment, $400 million from Abu Dhabi, a sovereign wealth fund there called CYVN, and it's also China is also addressing closer ties with Saudi as well, which I have reported before. I think this is very important for a change of balance of economic power within the region, and you can fold Iran into that if you wish. We can explore this over the coming weeks, but I do feel as though China is now reaching out to the Middle East for investment, as opposed to to combat the sort of trade aggression it's getting from the United States, the EU, and the UK. SoftBank, the Japanese company, is moving from defensive to offensive. You'll remember their far-reaching, or supposed to be far-reaching, technical investment thing called Vision Fund. That made some howlers in the past. Some very good investments as well, investing in Alibaba, but actually withdrawing from that kind of investment not that long ago. Now they feel as though the future is artificial intelligence, and so SoftBank is moving forward. That's what they're saying this morning. Let's talk about the United States. And again, the market sort of faltered yesterday. FedEx was weaker. That was one we were looking at. Gives a good idea about people buying things and general traffic. That was down 3% shares at the end of the day. Strange things going on as far as diplomacy is concerned. By Joe Biden calling Xi a dictator, President Xi of China a dictator. That I don't particularly think that's very helpful. It may well be true, but it's not very helpful, considering that Antony Blinken is just coming back from a trip to Beijing, where apparently he's been talking about trade in things like healthcare, auto, and entertainment with China. So he's trying to build ties there, but he's finding it's slightly undermined at home. I don't really understand what game the United States is playing, but if it were me, I'd be doing it in a very different way. But of course, it's not. It's down to politicians. Visiting the United States in the next few days is India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's this is considered a landmark trip to the United States, and they will be talking this morning in US time. They'll be talking with Joe Biden, and they'll be talking about defense ties and also participation in tech as well. So that's an important thing. Now, you remember that India is being seen as a big jumping off place for the likes of Apple and Microsoft as well. So here are the politicians actually getting together. The Department of Justice in the United States is talking about a cyber unit that's got national security concerns as well. That brings it straight into the way in which they deal with tech in the United States. It had been an outlier, and Amazon at the moment. Now, Bernie Sanders, who is a senator, as you know, in the United States, is saying that injuries at Amazon are up by 70% this year. They're trying to bring in, there's been the union representation in Amazon as well. Now they're trying to bring some kind of safety net towards them. Amazon is saying that, in fact, they have reduced injury by 20% as far as their industrial injuries are concerned. Ukraine, there is a big conference taking place in London, which is about the rebuilding of Ukraine. Now, this, of course, assumes that Ukraine is in a state to be rebuilt, but estimates about the amount of money were $411 billion, but that was in March, before the present counter-offensive actually took place. It may be a lot more than that. The UK is already guaranteeing loans of $3 billion via the World Bank. We're going to be hearing a lot from World Bank representatives, a lot from the IMF and other countries as well. As I say, that conference just starting in London this week. Okay, let's turn our attention to the United Kingdom and the inflation figures. Some are saying now this is a disaster. Basically, they have not come down. The overall headline inflation stays at 8.7%. However, and this is very important. Another thing very important about this. First one is that core inflation has risen. It was expected to be 6.8%. Now it's risen to 7.1% in May. I think that there, and of course, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has already said there'll be no help for people who are taking out mortgages to buy houses and all the rest of it. I think this is a mortgage bomb. I also feel that now the market is pricing in interest rates at 6% by the end of the year. I do feel as though the central bank has lost control over this, and I feel that if I were a journalist back working on the Financial Times or something like that, the kind of thing I'd be asking is this now time for the governor of the Bank of England to resign? And don't get me started on what that would mean for the financial markets. But clearly, the Bank of England is not in control of inflation, and a lot of people are now saying this morning it's no good blaming that on things that are international. Inflation is entrenched within the UK system, and the people that are paying for that are the same people who are suffering from cost of living increases. So I think there's a lot of discussion there, and I expect to read a great deal about that in the papers tomorrow, broadcasts like this one today, and also over the weekend as well. But I think that'll be it. The credibility of the Bank of England is very, very much on the line right now. Just go briefly to oil, which is unimpressed by cuts that took place from the People's Bank of China yesterday. Of course, the idea of that was to increase or get the economy growing again. They've been unimpressed by that. And gold, well, no one really wants to be too long on that because they don't know what the next pronunciation from the Fed are going to be. Will the hawkish pause continue, or will interest rates rise? And so nobody particularly wants to be long on it. So it's trading is very volatile at the moment, but it's stuck very much in that price range.
Right, real quickly, Michael. So yesterday I was talking about 2008 crisis. Now I think we've had a convergence as regards understanding that this is really bad. People's mortgages all of a sudden reprice at that number. Everything is all going mad. Vis-a-vis the likes of George Osborne coming to say that they did everything possible to prepare the economy for COVID yesterday. I will submit to you that the Tories have ruined the UK economy. Is it more of the time for Tories to go rather than the Bank of England governor, like you're saying, to go? Because they don't have a hang on it. Everything they have tried has not worked. From the misdemeanor of Liz Truss to what we have today, it has not worked. Even Rishi Sunak's plan is not working. And the UK economy needs a resuscitation or it's going to go down. What say you about all of this?
What I say is that I don't think it's within the remit of any political party to put this right. That's why I think the Bank of England is more, because the Bank of England is in charge of interest rates. And whatever you say about it, whatever happens with politics, whatever's happening in the rest of the world, the only thing now that is affecting people is the cost of living. And that is directly affected by how far interest rates will actually rise. And I do feel as though this form of monetary policy has kind of run out of road now. It's too clumsy, because what it risks is, and we've talked about this many, many times before, by raising interest rates, sure, you may reduce prices, but there are all sorts of knock-on effects from that, like wage price spirals and so on, strangulation of the economy, which result from that. So I don't think that I certainly would not want to be a UK politician right now. I don't care which side of the house I were to sit on. I don't think those problems are going to go away. The fact of the matter is there is a systemic problem here. And the big problem is the continuing rise in prices. And that's something which every developed economy is going to feel. That there is nothing special about here. There may be a different weighting as far as people's personal investments are concerned, personal savings are concerned, but politics, no. Economics, yes.
All right, Michael, just to examine Narendra Modi's visit to the U.S. He'll be meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden later on this evening. Yesterday, he met with some business leaders, and including Elon Musk, where they had conversations around Tesla and building electric vehicles in India. Is the United States looking to India as the new China in terms of trade partners, especially because of the Cold War between the US and China currently with regards to trade, and also how they manage some of the issues around human rights abuses, India's position on the Ukraine war and the likes in developing this relationship?
Well, I think like most of these things, it will be very difficult indeed. To answer your question, I don't know whether the United States sees India as a substitute for China. I think it probably sees it as a big market, as yet unexploited. I mean, you talked about Narendra Modi talking to Elon Musk. He's also down to speak to Google and Microsoft and Apple as well. And Apple, as you know, is already starting to open consumer stores in major cities in India. The first two have already opened and more are planned. And I think once businesses start to look at the sort of quick hit that they can get, if you like, to their revenue from places like India, the more people will be attracted there. Now, what is the problem with India? The problem with India is exactly the same as it is with China, which is there is a huge gap between consumers and those who do not consume or are on the poverty line. And both countries share those kind of things. And both countries will share demographics actually falling. So I feel as though what you're saying is sort of half correct, but I don't think that China is being seen as a substitute. India is being seen as a substitute for China. I feel as though India is being explored by the United States. Hence, the big companies already talking to businesses in India. That's the way I feel it's going to go. I have no idea whether it'll be successful or not, but there's a clear direction, and there's no question it's a landmark visit.
All right, well, thank you very much, Michael.
All right, now it's time for business updates across the African continent. Rutus Adiri is here. Rutus, my friend, I missed you yesterday. Trust you're feeling better now.
Yes.
I tried bringing you up yesterday,
this
but
job is
how's your health?
We're good. Good morning to you both. Good morning to all our viewers. Naira dollar, the exchange, we saw a convergence yesterday. I think it's even the front page of today's This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record. So 756 is what we saw at the INE window. Now remember, on Monday, INE window closed at 770. So we saw an appreciation to 756 on the investors and exporters window. Parallel market, parallel market even fell to 748, because I actually talked, at least for this area, I called a couple folks to ask what they're doing. So 748 there, but at least from 756. And then the Binance peer-to-peer, that was doing for 763. Now, the thing here is that what's important to note, price discovery is still taking place. So you are still seeing, and volumes are rising on the INE window, where you are still seeing participants trying to find...
Shut down Binance. Why you listed Binance peer-to-peer?
And because that's part of the rates that you use to find, because basically what you're doing is you're looking for all market participants that are trading.
I thought the CBN frowned at it.
Well, they can frown at it, but that's peer-to-peer. Trading is still taking place there. So we're trading on for USDT, crypto, and so on. That's increased. So that it gives you an idea. So if you're seeing that range,
I get the drift. Yeah. But I'll just remind you.
No, of course. Yeah, but essentially, you're seeing that range, the similar range there. So price discovery is still very much taking place now. Afrexim, the Afrexim Bank's 30th anniversary, we've been covering that. There were a couple business leaders that spoke on the exchange rates. The vice president at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Lea Kupoloyi, here he is. I think he was talking to Bosin, in particular about the exchange rates, and here's what he said.
Level playground. What it means that it's not that man no man, that the so-called foreign, official rate, and other people are going to market that they term to be black. I don't know about black market, it is illegal market. Now that we're having one, it is easy for planning, it is easy for the economic growth. In order, people will not be reaping where they don't sow. Because when somebody gets at 400 or 500 and is doing business with about 700 or 900, But with what it is now, it is easier for people to be able to have a long-term plan in our economy. I think that is the best thing that happened in the last 10 years, not just 8 years, the last 10 years for Nigeria.
Also, that's a one-on-one. Then at a panel discussion, what's his name? Makesh Kotesha, who's the president of the SCIC, Structured Credits International Corporation. Panel discussion where they're talking about intra-Africa trade and everything. He brought up Nigeria. This is in a big room with a lot of foreign investors. Here's what he said.
Portfolio investors are typically short-term investors. So they react to short-term market conditions. Long-term investors are really what you want from abroad. Foreign direct investment is really what you want. And for that, you need to have proper bankability of projects, and you need to have proper risk mitigations to cover real risks and perceived risks, both. Real risks are difficult to really change. They take time. Nigeria, for example, where President Obasanjo was here yesterday, I don't know if he's still here, but Tinubu is doing a great job of trying to fix the real issues in Nigeria. Other countries have done many policy reforms. Nigeria has embarked on a major change with the elimination of subsidies and the floating of the exchange rate and more to come. So those real changes have to make a difference, and they did make a difference in the spreads almost immediately, although that has to be sustained over time.
All right, so at different corners of this annual meetings of the Actualizing Bank, Nigeria is making the news. Foreign investors are sitting up. That room featured a lot of people from around the world who Mr. Makesh was talking to. Now, there was a lot of talk of trade, and I randomly saw this video yesterday. This is, again, just backing up now. Afri-Exim Bank talking a lot about intra-Africa trade, comparative advantage. A lesson from Portugal. Randomly saw this video on a commodities account that I follow on Instagram. Take a look at this. This is about how Portugal's value chain for cork, wooden corks, which are used in wine bottles. So those of you who drink wine, Portugal controls a sizable amount of the market, and not just in the exports of just the raw bark that's used to make them, also the complete value chain. Here it is.
Portugal produces about half of the world's cork wine stoppers. Most come from these trees, but harvesting a tree takes years of expertise and steady hands. Every summer, harvesters peel off the bark using century-old techniques.
We can harvest the bark of the tree without damaging the bark, so these cells can grow again without any impact in the life of the tree.
Because the trees regenerate, they'll never run out of cork. Today, Portugal harvests 100,000 tons of cork every year. After the cork planks are stripped from the trees, they're pressed between concrete slabs for 6 months. Then they're sent to a processing facility to be boiled for at least an hour. This machine punches out the stoppers we see in our wine bottles. In 2018, Portugal passed a record $1 billion worth of cork exports. But even as cork demand continues to grow, harvesters plan to keep doing things the same way they always have, with a good axe.
So just did a little research, yeah? As far as the global exports for those corks, Portugal controls 65%. So, that's basically, 6 out of 10, right? So in addition to that, that 1 billion they crossed in 2018 is now 1.2 billion as at 2021. 73% of this 1.2 billion is to the wine industry. And the majority of their exports go to France, Italy, and the United States, China, Germany, and Spain. Now, Portugal is an EU member, so is Germany, so is France, so is Spain. When we talk about trade and the fact that they use a similar one currency, the euro, there's no exchange rate issues for them. The stronger your exchange rate, the more expensive your exports to other countries, and vice versa if your currency weakens, right? And another thing is, if you think about the African nations, for like Ivory Coast and Ghana, they export just raw materials like cocoa. They export them to other nations who then take them and turn them into chocolates. And the Ivory Coast, Ghana, Nigeria miss out on this global multi-billion-dollar cocoa chocolate industry. But you see there with Portugal and the comparative advantage they have, that the tree that makes that particular bark, they have like 1.8 million acres, and as you saw in that video, regenerates. They don't just export the bark itself for other people to produce. They control the entire value chain. So the production, putting it in a hot liquid where it melts or whatever, softens. Look at the machines that they're using. So now for every 6 out of 10 wine bottles that you see, Portugal, the money is going to Portugal. So for us, I mean, the lesson for us is to not just stop at our raw materials that we export. We've got to make that transition to finished goods. I thought it was incredibly interesting.
I mean, that's a very brilliant story, Ruth, and I'm really excited about that story because that's what I've always said. We can do a whole lot better when you add value. We keep talking about low-hanging fruits like agriculture. Go and see what the Netherlands is doing. It's because they add value. And see what Portugal is doing. Nigeria must be a productive nation. The reason why we are feeling all the shocks from this convergence is the fact that we're not a productive nation. We need to be able to hedge. While you were talking about Portugal, a tiny country called, I'm not going to call it a tiny country anyway, so I take that word back. But a small car maker called Dacia came to my mind, out of Romania.
Yeah.
That company brings billions in revenue. It used to be owned by the Romanian government before, but they sold it over. But most of its stock still come out. It produced, I think, over 100,000 share of 300,000 cars. If we support our own homegrown industries like Inoson and Nord, do you know the revenue that'll come in? Look at the revenue coming in cork. Just who would have thought about that?
Yeah.
Just wine cork.
In every wine bottle.
Every wine bottle.
Yeah, sending money to
That's
Portugal.
what we are calling production. But guess what, Rotus? For that hot liquid to perform, there's electricity.
Right.
So those are the structural problems
And
we're talking about.
skilled labor.
There's skilled labor over the years.
Yeah.
They are passing on labor. People are learning the trade. There are multi-sectors. When they say the economy is thriving, there are multi-sectors across. See, I read a book that changed my life. It's called Today and Tomorrow. The book was written in early 1920s. It was written by Henry Ford. And Henry Ford said something that changed my life. He said, we must be pioneers of the future. Before Henry Ford came, nobody was paying $3 minimum wage. But he said it was possible. We must be pioneers of new sector.
Create jobs.
You create jobs. So that's what we're saying. And how can we be that pioneer? The government needs to partner with people, not to kill them with multiple taxation, not to hurt their business with corruption, not to destroy people. It must be a symbiotic relationship between the government and the people. You thought the government was just paying furloughs in England for the sake of paying furloughs. They paid furloughs because they know if the industries revive after COVID, they will pay their taxes. That's why companies like the UK collect over 800 billion in tax revenue, pound sterling. America can collect over 3, 4, 5 trillion in tax revenue. America's debt is over 30 trillion. But they know that they will collect over 4, 5 trillion in tax revenue, income tax revenue.
Yeah.
But we are poor because we're not doing a lot. We need to bring in this investment. And I hope our leaders are listening. Cork, ordinary cork, that people just remove and just waste.
And you just throw it away thinking, it's amazing stuff.
Thank you for this video.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of innovation, and that's something that for us as a continent and a country, we boast of. In terms of, we have young people who don't have, in quotes, we have a high unemployment rate. So we have young people who have considerably enough time to sit down and innovate, to think about things. And one thing you must give to Nigerians, especially our young people and young population, is our power of innovation.
Indeed.
Who would sit down and see a tree and think of the billion-dollar industry you can gain from it, as with others? And as we were speaking, and Rufai as well, I wanted to ask you, what's the updates with the National Sugar Master Plan? Because if we're talking about value chain across border, that's an area that we can actually, we can actually tap into. There are quick wins. We have bodies that are set up. We have elaborate inaugurations to set up these committees. We have act of, we have these things, these initiatives, but implementation, the barriers that Rufai has mentioned in terms of, power. When are we going to ever solve this power issue? Should we just see it as a pipe dream? We don't want to believe that because a number of small organizations
it's a solution.
Yes,
it's a money-making solution, solving power problems.
So the electricity bill that Tinubu signed, right? That's allowing this, from President Buhari, it allows President Buhari sign that allows the states to not generate their own electricity. So that's a step. We now have to, it's still, again, the value chain, right? Generation, transmission, distribution. So we'll hopefully get there.
You didn't have an opportunity to talk about the tax on diesel.
Yeah.
Because for small business owners, I was speaking to a small business owner, as a number of people, and they talk about already, it's like Can the poor breathe?
Right,
Can
right.
business owners breathe? So when we look at the multiplicity of issues that plague our, our business environment, then it becomes a big issue.
Yeah.
So beyond sugar, Rotus, what are some of the things? Give us creative ideas. We have wood from Portugal. We have the corks. What can we do as a nation?
Rufai talks about the mining sector so much. Gold is here. But wasn't Elon Musk looking at getting lithium from here for electric vehicles? This, we're blessed. Just allow the foreign investors to come in here, give them a conducive environment, and also stop smuggling. And also, once we get power sorted out in Nigeria, we're taking off. So you get that sorted out.
Power is a long-term.
Oh yeah, no, we got to get that sorted out.
Because Rotus, you see, when we talk about minerals, my heart shudders. You know why? We did it before. Jos used to be the hub for tin.
Yes.
Tin.
Do you know what I think of when you mention Jos?
Yeah.
Strawberries, right? That we import. Jos, if you just have a cargo airport, Nigeria is blessed.
There are many top Nigerians that grew up in Jos. You know why? Because their fathers were lawyers to tin mining companies, and there was a big ecosystem in Jos.
Yeah.
Till today, I think there's a place called British America in Jos. How did those places come about? Because of the influx of foreigners. Even look at Enugu, look at coal. Look at Colliery Mine, where we talk about the Iva Valley massacre that happened, which was a blight on Nigerian history. But there was a sector. Look at industries. They've all gone. Look at the Michelin plants, all gone. Look at tire. We don't make tires in this country again. We had Dunlop, we had Michelin. We need to be pioneers of the future.
We're blessed.
So in terms of agriculture,
One
of the things, you talk about strawberries. I used to order strawberries from, I think, a lady farmer in Jos.
Yes.
Before it gets into Lagos,
it's already
rotten.
bad.
So
that's cold chain. You can have cold chain.
Storage,
Value chain.
transportation.
Right.
That's what I said. Young people, they have small business owners who are innovative, but the system sort of it smothers them. It kills businesses, and these are quick wins. That's why I'm just mentioning
public
that.
service announcement. All those criminals and thieves that steal money and stash it in their sockaway tanks and everything, please bring that money and invest in young people. That money, you can see when we're doing Naira, all the money was just decaying in homes.
Right.
What if you have brought those money and used to do value with all these young people?
Absolutely.
You will get more in return.
But they need to be punished, though, also
You'll be
for
punished,
stealing.
You'll be punished for stealing, though.
Yes.
But please bring it out and invest in young people.
Right.
But we don't support corruption. Don't steal. It is wrong. You need to be punished.
All right, we need to move. Thank you so much for your time. A great conversation this morning.